Are you ready to discover the hidden details behind one of the most poignant moments in modern royal history? In today's video, 25 secret arrangements made for Princess Diana's funeral, we're pulling back the curtain to explore the remarkable lengths her family and closest friends went to in honoring the beloved Princess of Wales. Far from a standard royal ceremony, this final farewell was a deeply personal tribute, thoughtfully planned to capture Diana's warmth, individuality, and enduring connection with the public. From carefully chosen photographs in Westminster Abbey to the subtle touches of contemporary music, these lesser-known behind-the-scenes decisions shaped a day of collective grief and celebration that the world would never forget. Join us as we uncover the heartfelt efforts, some traditional, some wonderfully unorthodox, that came together to create a funeral worthy of the people's princess. In early September 1997, a profound sense of loss descended upon the United Kingdom and much of the world. Princess Diana, once celebrated as the people's princess for her warmth and empathy, had died in a tragic car accident in Paris. On September 6th of that year, millions upon millions of viewers worldwide turned their eyes to London for her funeral, a massive event of extraordinary complexity and historical importance. While the public saw the solemn procession, the floral tributes, and the heart-wrenching images of two young princes following their mother's coffin, there was far more happening behind the scenes than most people realized. Careful planning, secret rehearsals, and symbolic gestures all combined to create one of the most memorable and emotionally charged funerals in modern history. In what follows, we explore the hidden aspects and deeper meanings behind the arrangements, uncovering a tapestry of detail that underscores not only Princess Diana's unique place in the hearts of many, but also the extraordinary lengths taken to ensure her final farewell reflected both royal tradition and her boundless public appeal. From codenames and clandestine practices to last-minute changes that reconfigured the entire ceremony, these carefully guarded secrets help us understand how the British royal family and the government orchestrated a farewell so reverent, so dignified, and yet so personal. Whether you watched it live in the 1990s or are discovering these facts for the first time, you'll gain insight into the complexities that shaped Princess Diana's last journey. This behind-the-scenes exploration reveals not just operational details, but also emotional truths, disagreements, heartfelt decisions, and deeply personal touches that illuminated the entire ceremony with meaning beyond mere protocol. Although her life ended abruptly, the funeral told a nuanced story of sorrow, respect, and unity, bridging royal tradition with public mourning on a scale rarely seen before. Amid all the sorrow, the day of Princess Diana's funeral became a moment of collective reflection. Families huddled around televisions, entire communities gathered in silence, and global leaders paused their usual affairs to show respect. So many watchers at home or in the crowd may have felt an overwhelming sense of togetherness, an impression that transcended geographical boundaries. And yet behind those unforgettable images, Princes William and Harry walking in the procession, floral tributes piled high in front of Kensington Palace, and Elton John's stirring performance, there were the hidden elements that made the day proceed as flawlessly as it did. These silent, carefully orchestrated details show how an event of such emotional magnitude was still meticulously controlled to ensure it resonated with the entire world. Let's pull back the curtain on 25 of these secret or lesser-known arrangements, each one adding a piece to the puzzle of how Princess Diana's funeral was planned. Throughout, we'll reflect on how the funeral balanced tradition and the modern spirit, revealing glimpses of a monarchy in transition, striving to respond to a massive public outpouring of love and grief. We'll also highlight the personal choices that mirrored Princess Diana's own preferences, ensuring that even in death, she remained intimately connected to the people she cared about so deeply. It's astonishing to consider how much effort went into this single day. Code names that allowed private discussions without tipping off the press, early morning rehearsals carried out under cover of darkness, security planning worthy of a major global summit, and so much more. The convergence of heartbreak and ceremony created a scene so poignant that it still lingers in collective memory. By unpacking these behind-the-scenes decisions, we see the complexity of royalty's response to sorrow, acknowledging Princess Diana's unique standing as both a mother of future kings and a beloved figure who transcended the monarchy. Even decades later, the images of that funeral remain etched in the public consciousness. The haunting silence among the crowds, the poignant notes left on bouquets, and the tearful faces reflecting deep sorrow at the passing of a princess who had connected with millions in ways previous royals had not. The significance of these secret arrangements is that they underscore how no detail was incidental. Each choice, venue, music, route, and more, carried emotional weight and operational significance, revealing that behind every step forward, a constellation of individuals worked tirelessly to uphold dignity, ensure safety, and honor Princess Diana's memory in a manner worthy of her immense legacy. In the end, these arrangements were not merely logistical feats, but heartfelt gestures, reminding us that the truest measure of ceremony lies in its ability to convey love, respect, and meaning in a time of great sadness. Operation Tay Bridge was the code name chosen for Princess Diana's funeral, and this was no arbitrary selection. It had originally been reserved for the Queen Mother's funeral, underscoring just how seriously the royal family took this event. Despite Princess Diana's divorce from King Charles, she was still granted a send-off befitting someone of utmost importance. The name served a crucial purpose. It enabled the organizers, royal officials, government staff, security personnel, to discuss arrangements covertly, away from prying media or public speculation. By repurposing an existing plan, the palace signaled that Princess Diana was being honored with the same gravity customarily afforded to senior members of the royal family. This code name was essential, allowing for free-flowing yet discreet discussion of every funeral detail, from potential routes to scheduling. It stands as a testament to how, despite her official separation from the monarchy, Princess Diana's place in the royal narrative remained central. Beneath the cloak of Operation Tay Bridge, secret rehearsals took place in the dead of night. Typically commencing at 2 or 3 in the morning, these rehearsals involved all key parties who would appear in the official procession and ceremony. Soldiers, police officers, and other participants marched along the designated route, carrying out precise timings and perfecting each maneuver. Bearers of the coffin, in particular, underwent extensive training to ensure they could carry the lead-lined casket with unwavering poise. These clandestine practices highlight the level of detail that went into the funeral, emphasizing how no aspect was left to chance. Instead, it was systematically rehearsed to evoke solemnity and avoid mishaps. By the time the world was watching on September 6th, each participant knew their role so thoroughly that the day's events appeared effortlessly smooth and deeply respectful. These behind-the-scenes runs, virtually unknown to the public, were the scaffolding that underpinned the dignified farewell. One especially notable shift was the move from St. James Palace to Westminster Abbey for the funeral venue, a switch that only happened once it became evident that a far larger capacity was necessary to accommodate the expected turnout. Initially, the plan to hold a smaller service might have reflected a more private farewell, but the scale of public grief that unfolded demanded something grander. Westminster Abbey, steeped in over 1,000 years of British history, and the site of many royal coronations and weddings, could seat around 2,000 mourners, making it ideal for such a high-profile event. This was no trivial logistical tweak. It impacted everything from broadcast plans to security arrangements, underscoring how the monarchy had to adapt to the colossal wave of sorrow, respect, and love unleashed by Princess Diana's passing. The significance of moving to the Abbey cannot be understated. It was a symbolic nod to Diana's unique role, no longer an official royal yet still deeply cherished by the public, deserving a setting with both grandeur and emotional resonance. What set this funeral apart from many other royal ceremonies was the extensive public involvement. People were not just permitted but encouraged to line the streets, leave floral tributes, and join in mourning. This departure from typical royal protocol reflected an understanding that Princess Diana was far more than a traditional princess. She was a figure who had touched hearts through her warmth, compassion, and dedicated charitable work. Organizers recognized they had to accommodate unprecedented crowds, so they set up structures to handle huge volumes of flowers, opened areas like Hyde Park for silent vigils, and ensured that large video screens broadcast the ceremony for those unable to get close to Westminster Abbey. In this sense, the funeral was less a closed royal affair and more a collective experience, a day that bridged the monarchy and ordinary people in shared grief. This choice to include the public so extensively drew from Diana's own ethos, her instinctive rapport with everyday citizens. Among the funeral's most potent personal elements was the eulogy delivered by Earl Spencer, Princess Diana's brother. It was one of the few aspects not reviewed in advance by the palace or the royal family, adding an element of unpredictability to the meticulously choreographed event. With frankness and palpable emotion, Earl Spencer paid tribute to his sister, while implicitly criticizing some aspects of her treatment by the royal institution and the press. His vow to protect and guide Princes William and Harry felt both courageous and deeply resonant for those who saw Princess Diana not merely as a figure of officialdom, but as a caring mother. This injection of raw personal sentiment gave the funeral an edge of authenticity that many royal ceremonies lack. In effect, it struck a chord with the millions viewing around the world, merging the polished veneer of monarchy with the heartbreak of a family in mourning. In a similarly personal gesture, Elton John's performance of Candle in the Wind 1997, a reworked version of his earlier tribute to Marilyn Monroe, required special dispensation from Buckingham Palace. The updated lyrics by Bernie Taupin specifically honored Princess Diana, transforming the original homage into an anthem of universal grief. The palace's agreement to incorporate a pop ballad at a formal royal event was remarkable. It symbolized a willingness to deviate from centuries of rigid tradition, reflecting Princess Diana's modern influence and global appeal. The moment Sir Elton John began singing inside Westminster Abbey became one of the funeral's most iconic points, bridging generational divides and offering a heartfelt tribute that resonated beyond the usual royal audience. Logistically, the chosen route for Princess Diana's coffin was no casual decision. Carefully mapped out to allow the greatest number of people to pay their respects, it wound through areas loaded with significance for Diana, culminating at Westminster Abbey. Over 1 million mourners lined this 3.5-mile course, creating a striking tableau of mass grief. The sorrow etched on so many faces, and the flowers strewn along the path illustrated the raw emotional power of that day. Meanwhile, security personnel had to strike a delicate balance, keep the day solemn and accessible, yet remain vigilant against potential threats. Coordination with various agencies was relentless, ensuring that the massive turnout did not devolve into chaos. This route was more than a practical choice. It was a symbolic arc, letting Diana's final journey mirror the public's bond with her. An equally symbolic element was the royal standard chosen to drape Princess Diana's coffin, a privilege typically reserved for reigning monarchs or their consorts. Despite her divorce from King Charles, the sign of her being thus honored underlined her continued significance within the monarchy's tapestry. Some insiders have noted that the use of the royal standard also served to mend tensions, offering a silent but powerful admission that, in life, Diana had maintained an aura of royalty in the hearts of many. Visually, the bold regal colors atop a casket surrounded by flowers created an image that was simultaneously majestic and heartbreaking. For a time, Princess Diana's coffin lay at St. James's Palace, an honor rarely extended to individuals no longer formally part of the royal family. This choice signaled a deep respect from Queen Elizabeth II, acknowledging Diana's central role and the desire to provide a secure, fitting location. The days spent at St. James's Palace allowed both official visitors and close friends a moment to reflect quietly on her life, away from the surging public crowds. That she was given such a tribute underscores how, even after her separation from Charles, she remained intimately tied to the monarchy's legacy. Yet, the scale of public mourning necessitated even bigger planning for communal spaces. Temporary structures, crowd control barriers, first aid stations, and more were erected across the city from Hyde Park to Kensington Palace and beyond. The capital effectively transformed into an extended venue for mass grief, with tens of thousands of floral tributes carpeting the gates of her former home. The sense of unity and heartbreak was profound. People who had never met Diana felt compelled to converge on London, leaving notes, teddy bears, or heartfelt letters. This wave of sorrow prompted city officials to manage foot traffic in ways seldom required outside major national events. Security for Princess Diana's funeral involved a level of logistical coordination and strategic planning rarely seen at public events. Because the ceremony was poised to draw global figures, heads of state, aristocracy, dignitaries, and celebrities from around the world, organizers had to strike a delicate balance between ensuring safety and preserving the solemn character of the occasion. Planning began days in advance, with intelligence services and law enforcement agencies mapping every inch of the procession route and surrounding areas. Snipers were discreetly stationed atop buildings along the path from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey, and advanced surveillance systems, including CCTV cameras and plainclothes officers, were put into effect to monitor any signs of unusual activity. In addition, specialized teams were tasked with screening crowds for possible threats, with British Transport Police cooperating closely to manage the public flow in and out of major transport hubs like Victoria Station, Hyde Park Corner, and Charing Cross. The post-Cold War climate further heightened the sense of caution. Although major terror threats at such public events had been relatively rare in London before, officials could not dismiss the rising global concerns around terrorism. As a result, contingency plans were drawn up to address myriad potential scenarios, from protest demonstrations to emergency evacuations. Yet, one of the guiding principles throughout was the funeral's central purpose: to honor Princess Diana with quiet dignity and keep the focus on her memory rather than letting heavy-handed security overshadow the day's emotional tone. This meant that while armed response units stood by in readiness, they remained largely invisible to the public. Roads were closed off in a manner that felt respectful rather than oppressive, and watchers lining the streets typically encountered only courteous officers. The police presence was unmistakable, but it was choreographed to minimize disturbance and maintain a subdued, reverent atmosphere. Coordination among agencies was critical. British intelligence services like MI5 and MI6, along with the Metropolitan Police's special branch, shared intel on possible risks, ensuring that any vulnerabilities could be addressed before crowds converged on central London. The royal household also had to approve each element of the security plan, verifying that it complemented the day's ceremonial aspects without feeling akin to a military blockade. Despite the enormous scale of the operation, the day unfolded without major security incidents, a testament to the synergy among law enforcement, intelligence agencies, and palace officials. Their efforts meant that millions of mourners, from local families to international heads of state, could move safely along the procession route, while the global television audience viewed a solemn, dignified tribute free from overt militarization. Thus, even amid the formidable protective measures, Princess Diana's funeral remained a moving and deeply human gathering, letting people unite in collective grief without the spectacle of looming security overshadowing their final farewell. The global broadcast, reaching an estimated 2.5 billion people, was another logistical marvel. Coordinating satellite feeds across various time zones demanded precise scheduling and technical reliability. Over 90 broadcast cameras covered the route and ceremony, capturing angles designed to be immersive yet respectful. Commentary teams worked tirelessly to ensure cultural sensitivities, and explanations were provided, bridging the gap for viewers in dozens of countries. Sign language interpreters were included by many networks, broadening accessibility to one of the most watched televised events ever. This worldwide audience underscored the depth of Princess Diana's influence. Her philanthropic missions, such as work on landmine issues or supporting HIV/AIDS charities, had forged connections well outside Britain's borders. With such intense media coverage, guidelines were strict about how the funeral could be filmed. The palace insisted on specific vantage points to protect the family's privacy at key moments. Journalists were organized into pools, ensuring that, while coverage was thorough, it remained dignified and unobtrusive. This was a direct lesson from Princess Diana's experience with tabloid intrusiveness. Many recognized the irony. Some of the same media that had hounded her in life were now collectively documenting her funeral, bound by rules aimed at ensuring respect for the deceased. The guest list was equally painstaking in its composition, balancing foreign dignitaries, extended royal family, and personal acquaintances from Princess Diana's philanthropic and social circles. That led to a wide range of attendees, statesmen and celebrities, but also individuals unknown to the public who had profoundly touched or been touched by Diana's charitable works. In some ways, it was the broadest cross-section of society ever present at a British royal funeral, reflecting her life-bridging monarchy, celebrity culture, and charitable activism. The complexity of ensuring no diplomatic faux pas occurred was immense. The days leading up to Princess Diana's funeral were suffused with an extraordinary determination to ensure that every aspect of the farewell truly captured her essence, transcending the usually austere customs of royal ceremonies. No longer was this simply another formal procession in the centuries-long tradition of state funerals. Rather, it was a deeply personal tribute to a beloved figure whose warmth and modern spirit had resonated with millions. Those closest to Princess Diana, her family, trusted friends, and palace aides, deliberated over ways to showcase her individuality, infusing an intimacy rarely seen in royal farewells. This desire led to countless small yet meaningful decisions, special photographs of Diana in the Abbey to reflect her many roles, from compassionate humanitarian to devoted mother, personal items placed at her resting site, and the choice of modern hymns that had particular significance to her. Planners also sought input from individuals beyond the strict circle of monarchy, from the charities she championed to the personal staff who had traveled with her across continents, believing that Diana's humanitarian outreach should echo throughout the ceremony. Even the florists, tasked with selecting and arranging her favorite blooms, knew their work should honor not just the crown, but the people's princess who reached across social boundaries with kindness. The focus on authenticity extended to the involvement of those who personally understood Diana's passions and empathized with the heartbreak of her final days, pushing beyond rigid protocols in pursuit of something truly reflective of her life. This depth of planning was not without challenges. Older members of the royal household were unaccustomed to sharing so much of a funeral's ritual with the public, let alone weaving in touches like personal anecdotes or visually candid representations. Yet the mounting swell of public grief, along with Princes William and Harry's evident need to preserve their mother's memory, made it abundantly clear that tradition alone would not suffice. As a result, early morning rehearsals refined each step of the funeral cortege, but they also tested how best to blend official solemnity with heartfelt emotion. Choir directors, for instance, debated whether more contemporary pieces might resonate more profoundly with a younger generation attuned to Diana's human touch. Friends and former confidants contributed stories that helped shape the eulogy and subtle elements of the service, ensuring no corner of Diana's life was relegated to silence simply because it did not fit the typical royal script. When the day of the funeral finally arrived, every detail, from Lady Sarah McCorquodale's reading to the carefully chosen set of images on display, embodied the dual hopes of honoring a princess and spotlighting a spirited individual who had forged a personal bond with so many. In the end, this all-embracing approach proved transformative. It offered mourners an atmosphere of closeness and sincerity typically absent from regal occasions, reminding the world that while Diana was indeed a member of the monarchy, she was just as much a mother, sister, friend, and humanitarian icon. By weaving personal tributes into the fabric of a deeply traditional event, her loved ones and the royal planners ensured that the final farewell spoke not only to centuries of pageantry, but also to the modern warmth that defined Diana's lasting legacy. One of the most moving details emerged when Lady Sarah McCorquodale, Diana's elder sister, was chosen to offer a reading during the service. This simple act, seldom included at such a high-profile royal event, carried immense emotional weight. Lady Sarah's voice, trembling with grief yet steadfast in purpose, resonated throughout Westminster Abbey, reminding those gathered, royalty dignitaries and ordinary mourners alike, of the strong bonds Diana had maintained with her siblings. It also underscored that behind the global icon, there was a devoted sister, a loving daughter, and a mother whose death left an immeasurable void. Additionally, the Abbey itself bore traces of Diana's presence in a way no previous royal funeral had. Specially selected photographs of her were discreetly placed within the space, capturing milestones of her life, from childhood snapshots to candid images highlighting her charitable work. Though modest in scale, these portraits were imbued with significance. Whereas royal ceremonies typically rely on formal regalia and standardized imagery, These personal visuals pulled focus onto Diana's human qualities: the playfulness in her smile, the empathy in her eyes, and the tangible warmth she conveyed through countless charitable engagements. Indeed, the entire atmosphere conveyed a sense of intimate remembrance, bridging the formal gravity of monarchy with the more vulnerable facets of human loss. Such deliberate inclusion of personal elements broadened the funeral's emotional scope. At one moment, attendees would experience the solemn grandeur of state tradition: black-clad family members, grand organ music filling the vaulted ceilings, and a hush maintained by centuries of custom. Moments later, they would glimpse the heartfelt legacy Diana left behind: the childhood photos that recalled a more carefree age, the close bonds hinted at by Lady Sarah's poignant reading, and the lingering echoes of a woman who had reached beyond palace walls to connect with ordinary people worldwide. In this fusion of public formality and personal tribute, the funeral rose to an extraordinary level of emotional authenticity, an authenticity that mirrored Diana's own desire to be seen as both a caring royal figure and a loving, relatable individual. The result was a service that felt both dignified and deeply intimate, testifying to the family's efforts to acknowledge Diana's unique role in the monarchy's modern evolution. By allowing glimpses of her private world, her family ties, her passions, her abiding sense of connection, those final days offered a space where tradition could respectfully merge with genuine sentiment. In doing so, the ceremony fully honored Diana's essence, demonstrating that despite all the rigid structures of royal life, there remained room to celebrate the heartfelt personality that had endeared her to countless hearts around the globe. Before the official funeral day, a private family service took place at St. James's Palace, an essential opportunity for Princes William and Harry, along with other close family members, to grieve without cameras or public scrutiny. This was a quiet moment, bridging personal sorrow in the elaborate day to come. It also granted the young princes a chance to compose themselves before enduring the spectacle of walking behind their mother's coffin on the global stage, an image seared into the public's collective memory. Flowers played an especially poignant role. White lilies, considered to be among Diana's favorites, dominated the arrangements. These elegant blooms mixed with white roses and other delicate blossoms created an atmosphere of purity and reflection. Florists worked tirelessly through the night to ensure each arrangement was fresh, symmetrical, and placed precisely as intended. The significance of choosing such flowers resonated on multiple levels. Lilies are often associated with both mourning and rebirth, while white roses symbolize respect and purity. This floral artistry gave a soft counterbalance to the funeral's more formal elements. Meanwhile, the attire for the immediate male members of the royal family, King Charles, Prince William, Prince Harry, Prince Philip, and Earl Spencer, was carefully decided, opting for black mourning suits rather than military uniforms. This break from tradition underscored the seriousness of their loss as a family mourning their mother, daughter, or sister, rather than maintaining a purely symbolic front. The image of these 5 men in civilian suits marching in unison behind the coffin was among the funeral's most emotionally impactful tableau. Princess Diana's final outfit also bore personal significance. She was dressed in a sleek, long-sleeved black gown by one of her favored designers, Catherine Walker, reflecting her taste for understated elegance. In a quiet nod to her faith and philanthropic spirit, a set of rosary beads, gifted by Mother Teresa, was placed between her hands. That single detail forged a spiritual link with another humanitarian who had personally impacted her. By giving her an ensemble reminiscent of her style, The funeral planners and her family conveyed continuity, as though Diana's presence lingered in the fashion sense she had championed in life. Her dedication to charity also shone through in the ceremony's arrangements. Representatives from the varied causes she had championed, AIDS research, landmine eradication, homelessness relief, and children's welfare, occupied seats in Westminster Abbey, making the service not just a tribute from officialdom, but from the countless organizations and individuals whose lives she had touched. The intangible synergy of these invitees, sitting alongside royals and world leaders, represented the bridging of social tiers that Diana had orchestrated throughout her life. As the funeral began, a nationwide minute of silence enveloped the UK, forging a sense of collective sorrow. Planes were momentarily grounded, trains stood still, and daily life halted as people from all walks of life bowed their heads in reflection. In some places, the hush was followed by a solitary bell toll, marking the start of the official service at Westminster Abbey. This universal pause for a princess not officially in line for the throne, yet beloved by millions, illustrated the depth of empathy across Britain and beyond. Hymns chosen for the service were personally meaningful. I vow to thee, my country, and guide me, O thou great Redeemer, believed to have been among Princess Diana's favorites, gave the ceremony a sense of continuity with her private devotions. Each note echoed through the vaulted spaces of Westminster Abbey, enveloping mourners with a sense of solemn reverence. These were not random musical selections. They were carefully curated to reflect her personal journey, her school memories, and her spiritual inclinations. Finally, Princess Diana's coffin left London for Althorp, her family's ancestral estate in Northamptonshire. Television cameras documented this last journey, concluding at the gates of Althorp, where the Spencer family took over. The actual burial was closed to the public, ensuring that Princes William and Harry, along with other close family members, could lay Diana to rest in a private, emotionally authentic manner. She was interred on a small island in the estate's oval lake, an arrangement chosen for both symbolism and security reasons. Encircled by water, her resting place was tranquil, protected, and deeply personal, embodying a sense of eternal sanctuary from the glare of public life. In the aftermath, the Princess of Wales Memorial Fund carried on Princess Diana's philanthropic vision, gathering donations worldwide and distributing funds to various charitable causes she had supported. This legacy project disbursed over £100 million in grants, a testament to how her compassion continued to ripple across communities even after her passing. By championing issues such as palliative care, support for refugees, and prisoner welfare, the Memorial Fund kept Diana's spirit of empathy alive. Through the global broadcast of her final journey spanning from Kensington Palace to Westminster Abbey and ultimately to Althorp, the world bore witness not only to a funeral, but to a historical moment of collective mourning that transcended traditional monarchy. The hidden intricacies, like code names, rehearsals at dawn, evolving funeral routes, and personal tributes, revealed how the monarchy, in synergy with the government, carefully calibrated tradition with genuine emotion. This mixture gave us a day unlike any other in modern royal history, a funeral that was simultaneously official, yet profoundly personal, shaped by both centuries-old protocol and a heartfelt desire to honor Diana's unique and extensive cultural impact. Ultimately, these 25 secret or lesser-known arrangements show the extraordinary effort it took to produce a funeral that the entire world would watch. They illustrate how the monarchy navigated heartbreak and duty under unprecedented public scrutiny. Each element, from floral tributes to code names, contributed to a mosaic that reflected Princess Diana's life an evocative blending of classic royal structure and modern compassion. The day ended with a final wave of solemn goodbyes, as so many onlookers realized that an era of monarchy had changed, forever touched by the luminous presence and sudden loss of the people's princess. These revelations highlight the unstoppable wave of affection that surrounded Princess Diana. Her funeral was more than a ceremonial farewell. It was a reflection of the bond she forged with millions of people worldwide, a bond unbroken by either her divorce or tragic death. And so we see that the synergy between the public's deep affection and the monarchy's sense of duty yielded a singular moment in royal history. The forging of a funeral that was intricately planned, deeply personal, and truly reflective of a princess who, in her short life, had redefined what royalty could mean. Now that you know some of the remarkable details behind Princess Diana's funeral, you can appreciate the profound level of care and complexity that went into every aspect of that solemn day. From the code names that permitted secret planning to the final journey, broadcasts that allowed global audiences a sense of closure, each step was marked by both heartbreak and resolve. In many ways, the entire event encapsulated Princess Diana's essence, regal yet deeply human, bound by tradition yet shaped by love, and above all, directed not simply by protocol, but by genuine compassion for a woman whose spirit transcended the rigid boundaries of her royal station. The question still stands: which of these hidden aspects touched you the most? Was it the secret pre-dawn rehearsals that ensured every step of the procession flowed seamlessly? Or perhaps the deeply personal tributes, unusual for a royal service, that brought Diana's presence so vividly into the ceremony? Maybe it was the sight of countless people lining the streets and creating a sea of flowers, a moment that demonstrated the extraordinary bond between Diana and the public. Whichever detail resonates most with you, it highlights a sad yet powerful truth. This funeral, despite its heartbreak, was a vivid celebration of Diana's life. It was a communal, deeply emotional experience that crossed borders, time zones, and social barriers, allowing millions around the globe to feel united in sorrow and reflection. With each piece of choreography and every carefully chosen hymn, the day became more than a traditional royal farewell. It became a poignant tribute to a princess who, in life, broke the mold of monarchy and in death brought people together in a profound act of collective remembrance. Even now, decades after that solemn day in 1997, the memory of Princess Diana's funeral continues to stir conversation and reflection. The behind-the-scenes glimpses, secret code names, hush-hush preparations, and last-minute adjustments show just how thoroughly each detail was orchestrated to ensure the day captured her essence. In doing so, the organizers provided a ceremony that was equal parts stately and heartfelt, bridging centuries of royal custom with the modern spirit that Diana embodied. Whether you were there in person, watched it on television, or heard about it in stories passed down, you can sense how that single event managed to unite a worldwide audience in shared loss. For a princess whose warmth and compassion touched so many, it was a farewell that remained faithful to her character, deeply caring, global in scope, and universally felt. And in the end, it reminds us that even in times of sorrow, there is beauty in the act of coming together, to mourn, to honor, and to remember.